Devin Hollister, a boy like no other, club sipping beer and raising hell with his brothers.
Hey everybody, how's it going? It's me, Devin Hollister. Today is finally the last day. I know I always say finally a lot, but today we're doing our ranking of every Nightmare on Elm Street movie from worst to best. I just want to say thank you everybody who has been on this journey with me. You know, my channel kind of had many subscribers as it does now. When I first started this series, I think when I started the series it had about only 50 subscribers. So, and look at us now, we're at almost 9,000. So thank you everybody for your support. Thank you all for new watchers, and let's get started. I'm not going to diddle on for too long, but guys, thank you guys for watching. And if you enjoyed this series, and can't wait for the next one, and if you enjoy this video, please consider liking and subscribing if you are not. Thank you, and let's get on to the ranking. So coming in at number 9, the final movie, the worst movie in the franchise, and this should come at no surprise, Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare. I never thought that movies could seriously get as bad as this one. This is one of the worst movies I've ever seen in general. Completely just slapstick, not scary at all, one-liner Freddy in here. And as fortunate as that is, because, you know, it's Robert Englund, it's still like, this feels just offensive to even call Freddy Krueger. Then you got the most bland, most boring, most cringe cast, probably out of all these movies, debatably with the remake. You got a story here that is so scrambled up, a bunch of ideas mixed together that aren't really even fully fleshed out, and you get like one weird egg sandwich of a movie that is just like full of shit. The makeup on Freddy looks horrible. Everything that everybody says in this movie is just complete dog crap. I hate the main character. I don't know why they really killed him off anyways, but I hated the main character of John Doe. And of course, you know, probably the worst part of the movie is the final line of the film where she says,
"Freddy's dead.
You're so ugly you could be a modern art masterpiece."
Coming on next at number 8, we have, and this is very unfortunate because this is a very early film, but it's going to have to be for me, A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, Freddy's Revenge. Now, I did talk about this movie a long time ago, and there are good things about this film. Like, it's still a good Nightmare on Elm Street film. Like, I can still watch it and enjoy it as that. But unfortunately, where this movie falls for me is that it's extremely boring, even towards the third act of the film. You got this main character, Jesse, who's not a bad character at all. I enjoyed watching him. But unfortunately, this whole movie is just kind of wrapped around this hidden gay agenda that I have no interest in at all. And he's just kind of like the center of all of that. And I'm like, so we're pushing this type of shit in a Nightmare on Elm Street film? Seriously? Even in the 80s, people couldn't give us a break with this shit. But there are also many other problems with the film as well. There's a bunch of random things that happen in this film that have no place in being in it as well. Perfect example of that is the weird bird zombie. Like there's like a scene where a parrot just starts flying around and attacking everybody, and it's so random. It's not even a dream sequence. It just randomly happens. It's a good performance by Robert Englund with this type of Freddy. You know, he's still the dark, early Freddy. Not really much funny quotes or nothing like that. But at the end of the day, this story just kind of has no substance to it, and you just don't really care after watching it. You don't really feel like it's a sequel to the original. Coming up at number 7, and I'm surprised this movie actually came up this high, is the remake of A Nightmare on Elm Street in 2010. Now, the only reason why this movie was up like one more above Freddy's Dead, of course, was going to stay at the bottom, but the only reason why this movie is 2 rankings above is because I like Quentin Smith, and there are really cool visuals in this movie. But those are the only 2 things I like about this movie, really. You know, I can say there's honestly a lot that needs to be changed and a lot to be learned if they ever decide to make a remake again, which they hopefully do. I thought Jackie Earle Haley was a good Freddy, but unfortunately he just doesn't have that pizzazz like Robert Englund. Of course, nobody ever will. It's not fair for me to say that. But unfortunately, you know, it's come to a point where like I said in the review, there are certain characters that just can't be remade, you know? And so, of course, we'll never get another one with Robert Englund, so there's no point in worrying about that. But it's just like, you know, this type of movie is something that filmmakers really need to learn about. Lots of horrible CGI, lots of cringe dialogue from almost every single character in this film, probably even worse than Freddy's Dead. Like I said, I can't decide which dialogue in either movie is worse. Then you have the worst version of Nancy I've ever seen in my life.
I keep dreaming about children too.
Rooney Mara should have drunk some coffee before she decided to act in this movie, because I don't know what the was going on in her in this film. Coming up at number 6, we have A Nightmare on Elm Street 5, The Dream Child. Not a bad movie at all, you know. When I had gotten to part 5, everybody who had ever talked about the Nightmare on Elm Street movie says there comes to a point where these movies just become full slapstick Freddy. I didn't feel that at all until Freddy's dead. Like, I didn't have a problem with that at all until Freddy's dead, because before, I still felt like there was a good balance, and this movie certainly does. You know, this was the film before Freddy's dead, and I think you've got still an awesome story here. You've got the great character of Alice, who comes back from the fourth film after, you know, surviving Freddy and battling with her, and she gets a happy ending at the end of this film. You know, she gets to live her life, and we never see her again. You got Freddy, who's trying to come back into the world by, you know, something about Alice's baby trying to gain power through, you know, because she can see like an older version of her child in her dreams, and she can communicate with him. You got pretty awesome visuals here, pretty good practical effects. You know, one thing I really appreciate about these first 5 films is that they have really, really good practical effects. Of course, you know, you got that weird 80s style CGI with the blue lines and the lightning, but I think this movie especially still holds up. And of course, my favorite scene in the film is the comic book scene where Freddy turns into Super Freddy, and he, you know, messes that kid up pretty good.
Super Freddy! Told ya! Comic books was bad for ya!
Coming in at number 5, we have Wes Craven's New Nightmare. And I think this is actually pretty fair placement because, you know, I think that this movie has a lot that it does very well. You've got a returning best performance nightmare version of Freddy, of course played by Robert Englund, but you know the movie's meta as hell, so you got Robert Englund also playing as himself, and then you got Heather Langenkamp coming back as Nancy, and I thought it was a very, very cool type of movie to make where they're playing as themselves, but then they also have to play as their characters again to kind of defeat Freddy. I think that the story of how they were able to manipulate this type of meta story telling by having a demon take the form of Freddy and as his like evil Freddy's spirit, I think that's all pretty cool. The only real issue with this movie that holds it back so much for me is that we don't really see anything actually happen until the last 30 minutes of the movie. Now, you guys could be thinking that I'm crazy for saying that, but I didn't feel genuinely excited on what the hell was going on until we actually see the Nightmare Freddy come. I understand there's a lot of setup and explaining on what the hell's going on. You got Wes Craven in here trying to explain what's going on. But at the end of the day, it's like, if we're here to see Freddy and we only see him in like a 1/4 of the film, that's a problem. I mean, come on, because we think about, bring your mind back to that time era. You just watched Freddy's Dead, that movie was garbage, and now you get this, like, this movie's a lot better. This is a much better movie, but you barely really see Freddy in it until the end. Coming in at number 4, Nightmare on Elm Street 4, The Dream Master. You know, it's funny, the first time I actually watched this film, I did not like it, but then rewatching, I was like, this movie's actually pretty good. I don't know how the hell I did not like this movie, watching it at first. But The Dream Master is still a very solid movie, a very solid horror movie. Awesome, crazy good visuals, especially in the beginning of the movie. You know, you got crazy, nasty looking type of practical stuff going on. You know, just the whole theme of the movie kind of has like 2 things. It has like this weird, nasty type of element to it where you get like weird looking visuals. Freddy's eating like this weird pizza, or, you know, you get the crazy cockroach kill scene in the motel. Then you got like this weird like kung fu vibe to it. There's a character in here who's kind of mostly associated with all that, along with the side character who's actually the kill of the cockroach. They kind of like have like these fighting kung fu type of vibes. And then the whole third act is just Freddy and Alice fighting at each other in kung fu style. I thought it was very, you know, cheesy, very campy, but I actually really enjoyed the hell out of it. And I think it's definitely one of the best horror movies from the 80s. Coming in at number 3, we have Freddy vs. Jason. Now, of course, you guys don't see it on your end, but for some reason, you guys decided not to like my review of Freddy vs. Jason. I don't completely understand why, but f*** you, I don't care. So we're gonna still talk about it. You get one of the best performances of Robert Englund, unfortunately the last time as Freddy Krueger. You get an awesome Jason here. He was criticized a lot for his type of acting as Jason, but I love Jason in this movie. And you get a great cast, a fun cast. You get a great story of how Jason keeps getting Freddy's kills. Freddy's getting mad about it. So what does he do? He says, they're mine. Then you get one of the greatest third act of any slasher film ever between these 2 epic icons. Lots of cool dream sequences here, and of course, Freddy shines like a star. Now, these next 2 movies, man, I had a hard time debating which one I like the most. And coming in at number 2 is gonna be, drumroll please, the original Nightmare on Elm Street, 1984. Now, unfortunately, I really wanted to put this at the top, but oh my gosh, Dream Warriors, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Ah, man. But the original Nightmare on Elm Street film will always be, in history, one of the greatest horror movie films ever made. I think it is also much better than the original Halloween. The original Halloween is not that... It's good. It is a classic. It's definitely the best in that franchise. but it's, oh man, it's not as good as people are praising it to be. But that's another discussion for another day. The original Nightmare on Elm Street 1984 is of course with Freddy Krueger. The first time we ever see him, he's not much in the movie, but he has a presence there. He is always there. And he is from the twisted mind of Wes Craven that we see in this movie. You get many great original scenes, many great original kills from this movie. You get Johnny Depp, or whatever's left of him, of course. You get a great Nancy here from Heather Langenkamp, her first time playing as well. And it's just so satisfying as an original film, and it will always be one of my favorite films ever. But of course, and you may have guessed it because of my breakdown, the best movie in this franchise, in my opinion, is A Nightmare on Elm Street 3, The Dream Warriors. I've heard so many great things over the years of this movie, and I'm surprised I never watched it any sooner. When I finally decided to do this review series, I'd never seen this film before, and man, what a movie. You get awesome kids here. You get Kincaid, you get, I think his name was Jake or Jack, whatever it was, but you get a lot of personality with these kids. You really care about these kids. You get one of the best main characters, Dr. Gordon. He meets with Amanda Krueger, Freddy Krueger's mom. Of course, he doesn't realize that towards the end, until the end of the movie. But you get an awesome fight with him. You get the dad. You get Heather Langenkamp as Nancy again. You get probably the best Freddy in the whole film. You get the best kills, the best third act, one of the greatest horror movies ever made. And in my opinion, it is the best movie in the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. Plus, you get an awesome soundtrack as well. Well, everybody, this concludes the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise series on my channel, my first ever review series ever done. Thank you guys so much for being on this journey until they decide to make another one, and then I'll review it, and maybe I'll redo this ranking. But who knows how long that'll be. I appreciate you guys so much. I can't wait to be on this journey of doing many other review series with you guys. I'll try to make sure they're definitely shorter than over a year, because I've been working on this thing for a whole year now. It's been a whole year since I did that Nightmare on Elm Street review. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will be announcing the next movie review series on Monday. And remember, why spend time with your girlfriend and get a job when you could be watching The Movie Wizard?
Living Hollister, a boy like no other, club sipping beer and raising hell with his brothers.
Remember when your parents told you that comic books were bad for you? Remember that? They were right.